Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Margaret LeBrock. I am a survivor of the Indian residential schools. I was in 4 different residential schools, and I was in residential schools for 9 years. Uh, I was very young when I was taken away from the community. Yeah. And all I knew was the area where I lived, we were really a community that was raised by aunts, uncles, and grandparents. And I was taken away to a school far away. I remember being so traumatized when I first had to leave because I didn't know the English language. I didn't know anything about the schools. And I remember that was probably one of my toughest years, my first year in the residential school, because we were in a residential school where there was Cree and Dene, and I don't know what the fight was for, but we didn't get along with the Dene. We kind of laugh about it, but in reality it happened. But I remember my first year in a residential school, I got every sickness imaginable, mumps, measles, the flu, everything. Not only that, but I to this day, I still have some problems with my balance due to getting some ear infections that were never taken care of. Like later on in life, it's something they can correct. But it took me a long time to understand my experiences, because in order to survive emotionally, I had to build all these walls around me. I had to learn to adjust living with a whole bunch of people with strange customs. I had to adjust to eating food that was very different from the food I ate. We lived on wildlife and just none of the processed stuff. You go to boarding school, you start eating different, and that for me established a lifelong bad eating habits from the school. But as I got older, it took me a long time to break down those walls, to break down those barriers that I had built around myself. I put them there to protect myself. And I remember for a long time, it wasn't until I was an early adult that I started recognizing what happened. But if you ever look at the history of the school, the Roman Catholic Church was used as a tool of the colonizer. They were there to turn us into white people that we could never be, We just weren't. And that was a tool of the colonizer. And the other things were used was, the politics through treaties and all the other legislation that came after, the red paper, the white paper. Even this recent one with Stephen Harper, where I don't know more came, that was just, And I get really upset as I get older when I just recognize that Canadians do not understand the history. We were here first. We were born here. This is where we live. They don't understand the history, and sometimes I get so tired of people trying to explain to them, you got rich. These are our natural resources. This is our land, We pay taxes. We pay taxes at the store, wherever, and I get so tired of hearing that I don't pay taxes. Well, we paid, just, through our land, But my experience in the boarding school, I was very young, and I was sexually abused by a priest during catechism lessons. And when you're very young, I just couldn't speak for myself. I couldn't defend myself. And I carried that shame with me for years because I thought I was bad. I thought the priest picked me out because I was a bad person, or I just. And I used to, it took me a long time to even start talking about my experience with the priest and just how that affected me throughout life, just my relationships. And honestly, I hated white men because of my experience, older white men, And now sometimes I can joke about it. I said, the only white person I like to sleep with is Kenny Chesney, It's kind of we can make certain jokes. And, and over the years, even as I got older, when you're able to speak and defend yourself, I used to get sometimes mouthy with the nuns, and I used to get in trouble. And let me tell you, boarding school was where I learned to use the F word, not just on the nuns and priests, but on the other kids, because we were really a lot of us, we used to live in dorms. It was just, and it was not all bad. There was like real some positive stuff. When I was in some of the schools, I got to meet a lot of people, and to this day, I know a lot of people from a lot of places, and we're happy to see each other. And we wondered why, when we were in boarding school, why we'd argue, or we'd fight. He's not even cute anymore, we say, just fight over guys. Like, he never was, so, yeah, so there were some positive things. And I remember for boarding school, there came really a lot of good hockey players, soccer players, and we would sometimes play a lot of sports. And when I left boarding school, I was in grade 8. I went to a white school. And people recognized I had really good skills in some of the sports, like volleyball, soccer, It was one of those places, where you get picked in a team. I was always one of the first to get picked, so that was kind of a good feeling. But, there was a lot of setbacks for me emotionally, and it took me a long time to recognize I was really in pain. And it wasn't until I was a young adult that I recognized that I was really angry at my mother. She had nothing to do with it, but I was angry at my mother because she's just not there emotionally, I guess. And and when you think about it, how could she be there? Because we were in boarding school. And this morning when I was, walking through and I was reading notes you can read on the board, there was one that I came across that really struck me. Someone wrote, "I have to honor my mother," someone wrote there, because now I understood what she experienced. And to me that was so powerful, just what our parents experienced in boarding school. And I know it hasn't been good for a lot of people I went to school with. I know some of them just, became alcoholics. Some of the girls went on the street. And I know one of my friends that I went to school with, she disappeared in Vancouver's east side, and they suspect she may be one of Robert Pickton's victims that they could never find the DNA, but they suspect she was there somewhere. And and some people did well for themselves. Like I just went on with my life. I went to university, got my social work degree, and I got College of Commerce 2 years. But it isn't easy for some of these people. And sometimes, when I was growing up in my community, I began to see some of the effects. I didn't recognize it right away, the effects of residential school. And some of the people who were members of residential school, being in leadership positions when they had all the issues inside themselves. And that's a dangerous place for some of them to be. Because I experienced a lot of lateral violence in my community. Seeing the backbiting, I seen the use of power, using energies against people. I just seen a whole lot of negative things. Don't get me wrong, I love my community. I left to go work. I've been away now for about 10 years. And when I go back, it's usually for funerals. I was just home last week for our oldest elder passed away. But I'm happy when I go home because people are happy to see me, People don't see you for a long time, and my spirit feels good to be back home because it really is my history, We were a hunting, trapping, and gathering society, and we were taken away from that. I remember going to boarding school, in my life, I never really left my community much, just my corner of the world. And it was really traumatic going to a different place. And I remember even in school, the education system, we were learning something that was not in our world. In my life, I've never seen a cow, So they were testing us, to see. I didn't know what a cow was. I just knew the picture. That's what it was. So we were we were being, taught a system that was not ours. Oh, the light just went on. But anyway, I just have a kind of a funny story to tell. I had to learn to live with humor. I had to, it took a long time for me to heal. I had to go through the traditional ceremonies. That's where my spirit had to heal. And, and I still sometimes carry a lot of that body pain and a lot of memories because I buried it so deep. But I remember when I went for my hearing to get money, my lawyer called me, and I had been out walking in the park. I was living in Fort McMurray then. She said, the hearing's tomorrow, so we're going through, some of the testimony, and then that had to give. But I was really mad after that. I was so angry. I was just stomping through the park. I was going to go for a 2-hour walk because I was so angry. And then suddenly these white guys in the truck came by and they were yelling at me, lady, hey lady. And I was just upset. I was still upset at the priest. I was thinking, you effing perverts, leave me alone. You effing perverts. And they were saying, hey, there's a bear in the bush, be careful, But, there was a lot of negative experience, but they're also good, And the more you study, just lots of people had difficulties in life. When you talk about the apartheid policy, and just talk about how people had to leave Europe because of poverty, they couldn't make a living. Like it just wasn't First Nations people suffered. It's just life, And sometimes I know life was tough, but sometimes we just can't be there. We just can't stay there. We have to go beyond the pain. We can't blame boarding schools for the situations we're in. We can tell our story and we can go beyond it, but some of us, we stay stuck. And I was stuck for a long time. Well, I guess now I gotta get up. It turned red. Oh, I'm done. Thanks.